several times throughout the relationship he would try to have penetrative sex, and it just never worked. So I remember going to the gynecologist on my campus, and they said, just use more lube. So I was like, okay, I guess I can just use more lube.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 20s Detox. I'm Bianca, your host, where we dive into all the things I'm learning and unlearning in my 20s to elevate this decade. This week, I have an incredible guest. She's a friend of mine, Azia, and she is the embodiment of what it means to be a multi-potentialite. She is a fitness coach, a digital therapy program founder, the author of a powerful coming of age book, and a Toronto-based financial influencer who's teaching women how to build wealth and confidence from the inside out. This episode is going to predominantly focus on sexual shame, female pleasure, so keep that in mind. Make sure that this is a safe space because I always say this, but shame thrives in secrecy. I know for any woman out there, you'll feel seen. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Well, first of all, welcome, Azia, to the podcast. And honestly, full transparency, guys, like we've met a few years ago because we both live in Ontario. At this time, she was a travel girly and
Yes.
was all over. But right now we're both in Ontario and now it's like a full circle moment. And I'm so excited for you to be on the podcast. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for having me. And I agree. I'm a firm believer in synchronicities and the fact that we've crossed paths multiple times over many common interests: spirituality, woman empowerment, going after your own passions, and especially fitness, which I feel like you, out of all people, like continue to inspire me that you can juggle both that and creativity, but also keep it low key. Because I know your fitness is a huge aspect for you, and I actually didn't really know as much of that until we met in person, and we actually
Yeah.
started talking about it more in our daily routines that keep us energized and productive throughout the day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like fitness is a huge part of my life and I can definitely see that it is for you. And it's like probably one of the best things for my mental health. Not
Mm-hmm.
just physical health, of course, right? Like people go into it for that, but mentally, it
Yeah.
keeps me grounded. And I think as best of a person as I can be when I can get that
Mm-hmm.
energy out, like physically through movement. And
Yeah.
I definitely think both of us are reaching a point where it's not so much for our body and the way it
Mhm.
looks, it's more like having fun with like
Yeah.
movement,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. I think my favorite part of it, and that you and I resonate on, is how present it allows us to be with the body. If we even think of lifting any heavy object, you have to be so intentional with the breath in order to lift that. And you have to be intentional with the form. What muscle are you using? Like, are you rounding your back? Are you strong in your center? And there's so many crossovers I feel with life when it comes to even fitness. For example, staying, instead of disciplined, it's devoted, like devoted to having a healthy body, devoted to making sure that the blood flow is flowing every day, whether it's like an everyday walk or it's an actual like a hit workout, and learning how to listen to that as well transcends so much into just the mental health aspect, right, of like listening to our thoughts, being intentional with what we say and what we do, and then committing to that every single day. Similar to how we show up in the gym or wherever it is that we choose to move our body.
My like passion for fitness has really evolved
Mm,
and I'm really happy with where I'm at in life and my mindsets towards fitness because I think for a lot of women it originated in trying to stay skinny or trying to
mm,
like well eventually like when we were young it was kind of that was the trend to be
yeah.
skinny and then it reached a big butt and like a small teeny tiny waist and like fat had to be in this area but not in that area and the isolation and now it's like you said moving and breathing and being
Mm,
mindful and nothing makes me feel like so much better after it.
yeah. I agree. And I feel like because we're always stimulated by social media and the internet, especially if it's required for work, I find times when I can do my workout, whether it's in a group setting or by myself, it's my sacred time. It's the time where I can really disconnect from all of the highly stimulating tools that I need for, everyday life. I don't think internet or social media is a bad thing. I think it's a double-edged sword and a tool. But the fact that I can just come back to a grounding space where, again, intentional with the breath, intentional with the body, it's just me. This is my protected time to be with myself. I think is very rare in today's age.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad
Me
you
time.
see it that way. Mm-hmm.
I know. I agree. Especially we're both very busy ladies, so I
Yes.
hear you. And it's so important. It's really important to have that time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I, on one of the many topics we'll get into today, because we're definitely going to embody that multi-potential in the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I noticed on your more like TikTok's account, and
Yeah.
it really like hit home for me when we first
Mm-hmm.
connected. And I
Mm-hmm.
did talk to you about it like years ago because I've I haven't really been open with it on this platform, but definitely I've been like talking with friends with like sexual shame and female pleasure and how it's so hard to open up the conversation with women nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Not even nowadays, forever,
Yeah.
because it's been such a taboo topic. And I just want to like kind of give you a pat on the back for like how far along it's gone into creating the program, but I was wondering if you wanted to like give us a little bit of a backstory and how that was a thing because
Yeah.
I know it from following you for so long, but some of you might be just seeing you for the first time.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share this story. To me, it's a special place in my heart. I think it heals both younger me and then also allows me to help other women who may have gone through something similar that I did when I was young and 16. So, speaking of which, growing up, I always used pads. I think depending on like the culture you grew up in, for me, I was in a Chinese and Filipino household, so tampons weren't really talked about, nor was sex actually. My mom showed me how to use a pad, and I just used a pad. So I never once thought about exploring any type of vaginal insertion. With that, when I went to university for the first time, is when I had my first partner. And he was a man that had several different sexual experiences with other women in the past. So he was more so the experienced one in the relationship, and I was brand new to everything. Like, he was my first kiss, he was my first a lot of things. But due to that, I felt that growing up, the center of my world was always men, or at least my self worth was measured by the male gaze. So whatever he said he wanted us to do or try, I would just go with it because I kind of put my whole trust in him and not exercised my judgment when he asked me if I wanted to do certain things. And sometimes he never really asked me, he kind of just suggested, and I went along with it. And one of those things happened to be penetrative sex. And I'm a firm believer that sex is a vast spectrum. It does not have to
Hmm.
be penis and vagina. It can be so many things. It can be intercourse related, it can be outercourse related. However, at the time, I thought there was only one way to really ever have sex. And I remember he said he really wanted to try it with me. And me being very curious, I said, okay, like, let's do it. And I never once considered if it was something that I really wanted. I just know he wanted
Yeah.
to do it really badly. And especially like first year college, I feel sex is really put on a pedestal. And whether it's how many times you've been able to do it, how many people you've done it with, what the experiences were like, really goes to show how quote unquote cool you are.
Yeah.
So since at that time, me feeling like men centered my world, I said, yeah, let's do it. And I still remember till this day, like, we were in his dorm and he was telling me, okay, like, I think first off, you should shave though. And I said, okay, I guess I should. And I never once questioned, like, did
Hmm.
I even want to shave my vagina? Like, the fact that I never
Mm,
exercised my own judgment was, I think, red flag number one.
right.
And now looking back, it's like crazy. I like never shave. Couldn't care less, to be
Same.
honest. That is
Literally, we're women. We're not
literally
literal children that don't have anything.
And if you think of biologically why hair grows down by your vagina is to protect it. That's
Yes,
literally what it is.
seriously.
Um, so that was red flag number one. So once I did shave, though, listening to him, um, we started to initiate in penis and vagina penetration. However, I recall my body being so nervous because it just kind of felt like this big moment that seemed to hold a lot of weight and I didn't really know why. And I remember I kept telling him how nervous I was. And he just kept being reassuring and saying, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Red flag number two, the fact that he'd even ask me, like, hey, if you're not feeling okay, you don't have to do this,
Yeah.
right? Um, so when his penis did enter my vaginal canal, um, suddenly I felt my whole body just like lock up. And then it just couldn't go in anymore. And like my friends laugh when I say this, but it's like his penis shot right back out. Like my body rejected it completely.
That's so
And he was so confused because he's had sex multiple times. So he's like, that's so weird. Like this has never happened before. So he tried inserting it again, but like nothing was working. I felt like he was hitting a wall, which is one of the common symptoms of someone with vaginismus, which is a um, condition where because your body is so scared, it doesn't allow anything to go inside. So in my mind, though, as it was happening, I was just confused. I think
right.
subconsciously, though, my body was immediately in protection mode, and it was trying to make sure, hey, you're in danger. I need you to not do anything right now. But at the time, I was just really confused. So several times throughout the relationship, he would try to have penetrative sex, and it just never worked. So I remember going to the gynecologist on my campus, and they said, just use more lube. So I was like, okay. I guess I can just use more lube. There was no
Yeah.
inquiry about the psychological aspects, right? Like,
Right.
and I think that's one important thing that lacks in the healthcare system, which is why we created Dilato, and I'll get into that in a second. Is because a lot of practitioners don't tell people that the mind and body are so connected, and that if there's something physically wrong with you, it's only ever physical.
Right.
When in this case, like if you listen to the story careful enough, I had feelings of nervousness. I had feelings of like clenching up, tightness. So it turns out in the end, I had vulvodynia. And when I got this diagnosed, my partner dumped me actually because he was like, I just don't think this is working out anymore. Sex is really important to me, and it's just
Oh,
something like we can't do.
yeah.
And doctors told me to have a glass of wine and the pain would go away. So it took me several practitioners to get that vulvodynia diagnosis. And when I did get the diagnosis, the gynecologist was like, your sex life is going to be really miserable. And I was like, that's a great way to start that. Thank you. He's like, here's a diagram of your vagina. This is the part that's sensitive. And that's it. I have my next client coming in. And I think I was like 18. So getting that information, being emotionally dismissed, and then also going through a breakup, I truly felt alone. Like I felt like there was something wrong with my body. Like it was doing something that no one else was going through. And I felt guilty and ashamed as a woman because I felt because my worth was measured by men, the fact that I couldn't have sex, penetrative sex, meant that I wasn't worth anything and I wasn't enough. So that was a really tough time for me because it showed a lot of shadow work that had to be done where there was a misalignment with how I was viewing myself and what I measured when it came to self worth, my confidence, my beauty. And God bless journaling because that's really where everything started to
Yeah.
unpack. And that's how the book actually came to be originally. So, that book Bianca was talking about was something I published in when I was 20, so I guess 2 years later, where I wrote a lot and I journaled a lot about what I was feeling. Um, and I turned it into poetry. And that book happened to have a few chapters of those exact poems where I was just really confused and I was sad, but I felt like I couldn't tell anybody because all my other friends were having these amazing sex escapades and stories, and I felt really alone. So there's a little bit about my backstory before I go into the program, but did you have any thoughts on that? I know that was a lot of information at once.
Well, it really brought me back to early university
Mm,
because I, at the time, was a virgin. And I remember how
much when that came out. Like a
Mm,
girl heard about it and like spread about it everywhere.
mm.
And I remember a guy being like, "This is surprising to me because you have large boobs."
That's a crazy statement. What the
And
fuck?
when you were saying some of them, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, those are also crazy statements."
Mm,
And
mm.
it's just really unfortunate. An inner female rage comes into me when I hear other women be told these things
Mm,
so young, and it also just goes to show like the educational system about sex and like women's health and like consent. It's much better now. I have
mm,
friends who are teachers and much better now, but when we were in high school, like I had none of that.
yeah.
And one of the things that I can just hear about like the way you're so confident in telling your story is like you've really worked on the shame aspects
Mm,
that
mhm.
I know I still struggle with and like so many other women struggle with, that they honestly feel small when they say stuff like that. Like, oh, it's
Yeah.
somehow my fault, or I must have been doing something for
Mm,
him to have had those thoughts or felt shocked or whatever. Like,
yeah.
it's always like reverting back on us.
Hmm.
And I just want to know, maybe like maybe it's a part of how the program became a thing or how
Yeah.
journaling helped, but how it started like not being so much on you. Like this is a
Mm,
me problem. This is like something wrong with me, and that shame, because sexual shame is so much of like a universal experience in women,
yeah.
especially it can be even more significant with religion and different cultures. But at least I know, like, I was raised Catholic,
Hmm.
so that was one of the ends of like why I had so much sexual shame.
Yeah.
And then it was also my body shape and how people would like look at me and be like, "Oh, she must be like very sexually active." I really love that you just like went into detail about that, because it totally brought me back.
Yeah.
Unlocked the memory that I forgot about in early university where I'm like, "Yeah, that fucking sucked." Like,
Yeah.
I remember being like, I cannot believe that you actually are so close-minded about it, but I can't
Yeah.
even fight this because like so many people wholeheartedly believe in his statement, women
Mm,
included, who are
hmm.
very sexually active. So I'm like,
Mm,
am I something wrong with me? Like, you
mm.
know?
First off, I mean, back to what you said before, that is such a shitty thing. And it goes back to how people associate the physical aspect of a human being and identify them, especially when it comes to their sexuality. And I think that even goes across spectrum of like who we choose to love, who we choose to have sex with. Um, Especially in a society where we put women as a sexualized object, it makes so much sense that unfortunately when we're younger and we don't have that education, we assume all these things about somebody. And unfortunately
Yeah.
when we're young, we don't have the tools to be able to decipher what is a truth and what is not a truth when it
Yeah.
comes to our internal thoughts as well as the external things other people tell us. And you bring up such a good point of like, okay, how do you detach from that? And I think because I spent so long misaligning what I was worthy of, I started to ask myself, so if men are not the correct and aligned measurement of my self-worth, then what is? And that's when I started to ask myself, like, are there any other beliefs that I've been taking on outside of that? And one of the biggest things was my academics. I always felt growing up, if I wasn't pretty enough, I'll just be smart enough. And then I just dove headfirst into being a workaholic and trying to be the best in class because that would make me quote unquote enough. So it's interesting that even though sexually and men, there was a lot of weight that I held because similar to like a muscle dependency, if I'm not actually fixing the root of the problem, it's just going to bleed its way into other things in my life. And it just happened to be academics. So it was funny. I remember I just unlocked another old memory where I think I failed like a class. I don't know what class it was. It's probably math, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I remember like shitting my pants because I was like, I thought I was so good at this kind of stuff. And I worked myself so hard. And I remember saying out loud, and I think this was my subconscious talking of like, well, if I'm not pretty enough and I'm not smart enough, then like I'm not enough for anything. And that's when I realized, I think that was like one of the catapults of what had me start my book is like, since when do I have to use external validation to show that I am enough? Like, I am already enough. I never was broken to begin with. There was not, like you said before, there was nothing ever wrong with me from the start. I'm exactly who I am, who I'm meant to be, and that is beautiful. So shutting out all the noise on the outside and really honing in of like, how do I view myself, and are any of those thoughts attached to what people told me, or is it really how I feel? So going to therapy was one of my biggest things that I took, actually. So after I started journaling, I was like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. I'm realizing I can actually be a lot more in control, because there's no higher figure saying, Asia, your worth is based on this. Like, it's actually me. It's me versus me is what I quickly realized. And I thought, okay, I need some extra help. So I started going to therapy, and that's when she helped me with compassion focus therapy. So what that is that the human body, the theory is we have three brains, and we have like the calm one, the mothering, the nurturing brain, and then we have the ego brain. So the ego brain of like, I'm better than everyone else, I'm at the top, the competitive side. And then after you have the calm nurturing and you have the ego, you have the survival one of like, I just need food, I need water, if there's a fight, I'm gonna go hide. And I felt like a lot of my thoughts were never in like the calm, grounding, motherly side. Like, a lot of the thoughts I had of like, you should feel guilty as a girlfriend that you're not good enough, or like, you should be ashamed of this body because it doesn't work properly. That was all like the ego brain talking, and I took that thought as a truth, and like similar to, I'm sure, what people said to you in university of like, you took that as a heart, you chose to make that a truth, unfortunately, because like
Yeah.
we weren't taught how to undo those truths. So once I journaled all my thoughts, she would actually have me go with a highlighter, and I would highlight each of my thoughts, and she'd say, okay, Asia, which part of the brain do you think this is from? None of these are truths. You are deciding yourself. But as you're like listening to these thoughts back, and you're reading them back and you're saying them out loud, like, what actually sounds like you? And whichever one, I thought did, and let's say came from like the survival side, she would have me dive deeper and go, okay, but why? Like, where did that come from? Is that really your truth speaking, or is that like a cultural belief, or is that like a religious one, or is that just from like society standards? So really getting nitty gritty, actually, that's very Virgo of me now that I think about it,
I love
into my
it.
thoughts and really
I haven't heard
dissect.
of that before.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of my favorite therapies to go back to. I think anyone can do it, whether they are going through their own sexual shame or just like struggling with their self-confidence, just dissecting the truth. The best visual I give is like, all your thoughts are in this ball of yarn that's tied together, and the only way we can dissect it is literally taking thread by thread and pulling it out of that big ball of yarn and seeing, okay, where is that thread actually coming from, until you're at the bottom and like all the threads are loose.
Yeah. That's a really good visual too.
Mm-hmm.
You've been saying so many things where I'm like, I need my friends, my girls to listen to this one. It just really shows how brave you are in this,
Thank you.
because it's not easy. There's been the personal development, yes, it's been a thing for a while. Originally it was more of a male field,
Yeah.
right? And then now more women are getting into it. We have so many different aspects, but when it comes to sex, that is still taboo. Do you ever still feel like these like moments when you're sharing things online that you're like, oh, that's like maybe another thought I have to like journal about and figure out which part of the brain it's from? Because I even was thinking about some of the feelings I had in this moment, being like, wow, I haven't shared that before. Like, that felt a bit uncomfy. And I keep thinking about shame thrives in secrecy.
Yep.
So even while we're talking about it right now is healing, right? Sometimes healing is uncomfy. Like, sometimes it's like, whoa, I didn't know that there was a thread that far deep in there. And it's now seeing sun for the first time in like 20 years. So that's
Yeah.
nuts. But yeah, it's just, do you still feel like those thoughts? Are you pretty consistent with being like, I'm good. I'm owning this.
That's so good. I think when it comes to my sex appeal and like my sexual confidence, I feel really good in it. I will say it definitely still takes active practice, and I do find myself still centering my thoughts around men. And I think naturally in
Yeah.
this patriarchal
Same.
society, it takes a lot of deconditioning to do, because it can be as simple as like when I look at myself in the mirror, with a cute ass outfit, like obviously my first thought is, wow, damn, I look hot. And then the second thought sometimes goes of like, okay, am I thinking I'm hot because like I think I'm hot, or do I think I'm hot because I think guys will think I'm hot? You know what I'm saying?
Totally,
And it's
100%.
like, okay, well, that's a good thing to journal on, Asia, if it was the second one. Not that it's bad. I think as women, when we look at like Disney stories or any childhood stories we grew up at, it
Yeah.
was always ending with you have to be with the guy at the end, right? Like it
Yep.
was very rare if you weren't with the prince, if you weren't with the hot boy, or maybe if you didn't get with them, like in the second movie, you probably would have, right? So the fact that our ending always associates with men, it's so normal to like feel those thoughts. But when we do, let's try not to judge ourselves based on the environment in this world that we were brought in, right?
Even stepping out the door,
Yep.
there might be something that is conditioning us, even though we're not even realizing it, you
Mm,
know?
mm-hmm.
I think about that to this day, being like, I could do all the work about conditioning or unconditioning from early childhood, but those root beliefs are so
Yeah.
deep in there, and we might not even know. Like, we might pluck one thread, but another
Mm,
thread was just like thrown right in there because of an event today that we didn't even know goes in that category.
yep.
And I have to give myself grace in the moments because, like, we have
Yes.
so much that we're exposed to
Yeah.
online, outside, and it's great that people want to express their opinions, but sometimes they don't serve us, and we're not
Mm,
always consciously aware to be like, I'm not gonna bring that
yeah.
in my brain because it happens sometimes, like
Yeah.
100%.
It's like when you are eavesdropping on people and you sometimes hear a conversation, you're like, I don't need that energy in my space right now. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
disassociate from that.
Yeah.
Everyone, I
Yeah.
feel like, is like on their own healing journey. They're going through their own things, and it's just like we only have 24 hours in the day. I don't want to spend a single one of those around people where there's just a lot of healing that needs to be done, or there's a lot of judgment in this space, right?
Yeah.
So I agree. Like you have to protect your energy when it comes to these things, for sure.
And so eventually you have created this program for other
Hmm.
women, and I really love to see all the comments of so many women feeling seen by your content. Like, it's
Yeah.
really amazing because I have never heard of these. I don't think any of my friends know about it. The only reason why I know about vaginismus and vulvodynia is because of you.
Mm.
So I just can't imagine like how seen they must feel, being like, this is what I have, and I feel like
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah,
understands.
yeah, and that's where the program came from. So, for some context for those that haven't heard about it, my big philosophy and biggest reason why I am where I am today, where I can share these stories confidently, and I've been able to build a personal brand out of that, and where like I can create a video about it, and I don't even blink twice about whether my aunt or my grandma would see it or my ex-boyfriend. Is
Right.
because all of this, when it comes to healing, requires a biopsychosocial approach. So, you know how I talked about at the beginning of my story? Okay, I felt like I was hitting a wall, and I felt like nothing was going in, right? Like, that's a physical trait. For anyone who can't insert a tampon, when you feel like a burning sensation, like, that's a physical trait. And for the longest time throughout all of history, it's always seen as a physical thing. And never once do we think about how does it affect us psychologically and how does that affect us socially, right? Because we are human beings, we interact in social settings all the time. So for me, what I love teaching women and what we teach about in the self-paced course, Dilato, which is also co-founded, by the way, with my co-founder Ellie. She's a pelvic floor physio. So I come in with like the patient and the marketing side, community building, and she comes in with like the technicality, the medical side, and then the in-field experience because she's been helping women with this for over 8 years. So I highly recommend if you're out there, definitely go seek a pelvic floor physiotherapist. They're incredible. I do recommend calling in and asking if they do have experience though with vaginismus, vulvodynia, or pain during sex, because that also helps. Because some pelvic floor physios, there is no standardization. So some may not actually be aware of the psychological aspects as much, nor know how to hold that compassion. So it's so important to do that part, do your research before you go in and see them. Because the last thing you want to see a practitioner that either doesn't believe in you or doesn't help you feel seen. Um, but again, going back to that point, it's more than just physical because what was actually happening to my body, if we think back to the initial situation in my ex boyfriend's dorm, I was feeling nervous and I was scared, right? So my body remembers trauma. Everyone's body remembers trauma, right? And trauma is stored in the body. So I always like to break it down in almost like a diagram of, okay, when my body feels like it's in danger, everything tenses. If you think about the last time you were stressed, sometimes you clench your jaw, sometimes you clench your fist. In this case, if you are someone with a uterus, when you're stressed, sometimes you clench your vaginal muscles. That's why people who are scared to insert tampons, sometimes it can't go in because your vaginal muscles and your pelvic floor muscles are tight, like you're holding a fist. So if you think back to that, my whole body seized up because it was like, whoa, Asia, you're in danger. Like, you're not going to let that in. So suddenly my body is going to remember this pattern of like, anytime anyone tries to go near Asia's vagina, I'm going to close up because it's like, oh, I need to protect you from that pain, right? And my body anticipates that pain. So even when, let's say I went to the gynecologist to get tested, this is before I got diagnosed, they were constantly swabbing and probing me. And it felt like, honestly, a paper cut on the vagina because they were trying to see, like, does she have a bacterial infection? Is it something tissue related? But because it hurt so much every single time they swabbed me, my body kept remembering that exact same pattern, right? Someone goes near Asia's vagina, oh, I'm anticipating pain. I'm going to seize up. And my whole body would just clench. So it just remembers that. So if your body remembers this pattern, it's very similar to, okay, if I asked you, Bianca, right, to have your hand out, and if I ask you to hold it into a fist, right, and I ask you, okay, let it go, it's easy to let go, right? You release your fingers, it's very simple. But if I ask you again, okay, I want you to clench your fist again, but I want you to hold this for a week, and then like 2 weeks, and then 6 months. Suddenly you're going to start to get pain in your shoulder, in your wrist, in your neck, right? Because the whole body's connected. So a couple of years later, when I ask you, okay, time to open up that fist again, I bet you actually can't open up your fist at all.
Yeah.
Because the muscles are just
100%.
so tight and tense, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what's happening to the pelvic floor muscles for those that have, let's say, pelvic floor dysfunction or vaginismus. If you have a fear of insertion, your body could just be clenching the whole time because it's just trying to protect you. So what we do in Dilato is we consider this psychological aspect. Like, do you have feelings of shame? Do you have feelings of fear? Are you really stressed? It's actually very, very, very common for people that have TMJ. So again, that tightness in the jaw, to also have pelvic floor dysfunction. Because when we're an embryo, your jaw and your vagina, your vaginal canal are connected. So even when we're stressed out, like you may notice your butt's clenching, that's because your pelvic floor muscles are tensing up, right? So it's so important to realize this so we can undo it, right? And we can start to do stretches and exercises and breath work to release the muscles, to start to create positive association with insertion. Because all these years, my body was holding on to that negative association. It was holding on to pain. It was holding on to fear anytime anyone inserted it. Because the funniest thing ever, and this is when I realized going to a pelvic floor physio for me, I was on the right track, is like I could always insert a finger in myself, no problem. I could insert 2, I could insert 3. So I was like, okay, this makes no sense because anything else inserted would hurt. But like I can physically do it. So like what is this association my brain has? So when my pelvic floor physio saw me, I think for the 3rd time, she had me do breath work, she used a lot of lube, and she was able to insert 3 fingers and no problem. And I was like, okay, this is insane. How is this happening? And she's like, it's because we've created a calm association with your body. Like your body knows it's not in danger. It knows it doesn't need to be protected. So it's allowing you to release the tension in the muscles and actually allow things to go in. So there's different types of therapy that can help with this. I know I'll talk a lot about dilator therapy, which really they just look like dildos, but they're actually like medical pieces, I guess, equipment pieces. And they're a lot smaller. And it's to help teach you how to insert things in and then have positive, calm associations with that to retrain the brain. So that's why the psychological part is so important, is because, you know, when we've been holding on to fear for so long, how do we undo those behavioral patterns, right? And tell our body. Because a lot of the time we get, okay, Asia, like mentally I feel calm, but nothing's going in. I'm like, okay, there's also like the body aspect to you. Maybe thinking to yourself, all right, I'm feeling calm. But in reality, I bet you like your pelvic floor still clenched, and I bet you're still clenching your butt, and like there's still tension in your thigh. So there's a lot of like work to be done when it comes to being present with the body and actually listening to it and sensing where there's tension and then releasing it either through breath work, through fascial massage. Like there's so many ways you can do it. So it's not a one size fits all, but in Dilato, we just try to empower women by giving them resources and this type of knowledge so they have options and they have avenues to go down, because you are more than just your condition. And that was like the biggest healing for me at the end of the day, was like, I'm more than just my body. I'm more than just these pelvic floor dysfunctions. Like, I am Asia and I'm like the coolest fucking person I know, and that's it.
I love that. That makes me think of, I'm not sure if you know about like arousal disorder and orgasmic disorder. I did actually, when I was in university in my last year, all of us had a case study. And
Mm,
the one I was chosen was arousal disorder for a woman.
mm,
And all of it came from past trauma
mm.
of like sexual assault.
Yeah.
And also her religious views around sex. And
Mm,
then as a result, of course, like because that's the first start in like the arch of like how
yeah.
women, have orgasms.
Yeah.
Of course, she also had like the orgasmic disorder. Some people have their arousal and then can't actually have an orgasm. And I have like friends of mine who also have that. And like you said, it's not just because this was a psychopathology class, this was
Mhm.
just focusing on like your beliefs and psychology and past experiences and how that's affected things. And
Yeah.
that honestly changed my life and my sex life
Mm,
after reading into that and like really getting into past case studies and understanding how common this is. Like I remember having a conversation with my girlfriends being like, okay, real talk, how many of you guys have finished with your partners? And
mhm.
none of them could say yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, I just didn't think I was like into them that much. And of course, it could be like maybe you guys aren't right. Like maybe something like you're mentioned in your first partner, like they're saying kind of the wrong things to make your
Yeah.
body and you feel safe, but
Yeah.
also it can be past experience of those that we
Yep.
can't let go. And
Yep.
to this day, even with my partner of like almost 5 years, and he's like so sweet, so kind, like I still need to be like, I'm safe. Like
Mm,
I'm
yep.
safe in this moment, and I tell my friend that being like a lot of my friends being like you have to remind yourself that you're
Mm,
safe in these moments
yeah.
because I know I don't have vulvodynia or vaginismus, but I honestly feel like even myself who has experienced like sometimes where it's not comfortable all of a sudden because I had this like weird thought in my head or I
Mm,
wasn't calm in that moment. And I had to really like visualize everything kind of relaxing and
yeah.
then it works out, right? But the program that you created could also be for women like me, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm trying to get at because I have friends who may have like arousal or orgasmic disorders or symptoms of it, right?
Yeah.
Like all of us, I mean, I definitely had. And just opening up that conversation of the mind body connection
Mm.
will like freed me.
Oh, I love that so much because I agree. I think our environment, like, I think there's an actual study. I don't have the numbers on me by heart, but there is a study where, like, environmentally can significantly impact whether a woman orgasms or not. And I think even taking that a step further, the fact that we normalized it, and a part of me is also like there's a bit of performativeness as well from women that like we
Yeah.
have to almost like fake it in order to make our partner feel better.
Yes.
And then that goes back to centering men around sex. The one thing where we really want to give ourselves more pleasure is that why are we giving and blaming ourselves if we can't please the man? Then what's the point anyway, right? Like, what's this narrative that we're telling ourselves in the bedroom? And it's such like a big flaw in heterosexual relationships. Um, and something that also came up for me when you were talking about your experiences with your friends is like how much you put on a pedestal orgasms too. I think orgasms are beautiful, they're hot and they're sexy. And I also feel like though it does take away sometimes just being present with your partner. Like you said, like, do I
Yeah.
feel safe right now? Like, am I
Yeah.
enthusiastic about this right now?
Yep.
Or am I just doing because I feel like I have to? And I think that
Yes.
tells a lot to the body. It reminds me of like for me. So with that first ex-boyfriend I had that left me, and I was kind of like diagnosed with the condition, kind of not, because I was seeing so many different physicians. The second one I had, all his hockey friends called me a prude because like I didn't want to have sex with him, which was
Oh,
crazy because I was like, aren't you gonna say something? Red flag number probably 3 million Asia. He was like, I mean, I tried to say something, but like whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, you're not even
no. Yeah.
advocating for this? The fuck? But the craziest thing is like fast forward though, there was this one guy best friend I had, and he was the absolute best. So he was the one where I actually had my first orgasm, and it was because similar to like what you said, I felt so safe because I had previously had all these sexual interactions with people that didn't see my self-worth as like anything past my body, and they didn't hold space for the emotions I was going through. And the funny thing is, I never once could tell any of those ex-boyfriends about my condition. And I never asked myself, why didn't I want to tell them? And I realized subconsciously it was because I didn't feel safe. Like I didn't feel like
Mm,
it
yeah.
was their quote unquote problem. And that's when I quickly realized, okay, wait, like a healthy relationship is clear communication of these things,
Yeah.
even if you feel like you have those moments of shame, because they're there to love you and take care of you and listen to you, even when you're not feeling your best, right?
Yeah.
So, and there was this one guy best friend I had, and he was the first guy who, like, I was outwardly telling my condition to. And I remember I was like shaking in his car. We were like in the parking lot. And I was like, I really feel like I need to tell you this. And he's like, is everything okay? Because like we were hooking up here and there, but we weren't doing trying anything penetrative. And whenever he asked me, I said no. And he completely, like, he never questioned it. He was like, yep, okay, that's fine. Um, so when I told him the condition, I was like, hey, like I'm really nervous. I think I've had it for a while, but like past partners were kind of like, I just didn't feel safe enough to tell them. But I feel like because we're really good friends and like we're getting really intimate together, I feel like you should know this about me. And when I told him, I remember being like, my heart was going so fast.
Yeah.
And he paused for a moment and he said, first off, thank you so much for telling me that because I can't imagine like how that must have made you feel sharing this based on past experiences. And he's like, just know that doesn't change anything about you. He's like, I still love to
Mm.
hang out with you. You're really freaking cool. And like, at one point he was like, wait, and you've never orgasmed before? And I was like, that wasn't really the point of the conversation, but yes, basically.
Yeah. Seriously though. Hmm.
And he's like, well, first off, if there's anything I can do to learn about the condition, like, let me know. And if there's anything I can do for you, like, please also let me know. And he's like, also, we're going to change that. You're definitely going to orgasm this summer. And I was like, you are so sweet. Thank you. And sure enough, I did. So
Yes.
I think that goes to show because I felt safe with this person and I felt like I could
Yeah.
be myself, like, my body just felt more comfortable reacting to him. And again, I don't know the science that deeply into it. You probably know more science about orgasms than I do. I just know that I speaking to what you said, like feeling safe is a huge component of it as well.
Yeah. And you really emphasized with an important part, it's like the pressure to
Mm,
orgasm. And
yeah,
I think so many women, when they feel like it's not going to happen
yeah,
and they don't want to take too long, they'll fake it.
yeah, yeah.
So many women do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I don't know if it was you or it was somebody else, but I made this like pact to myself when I met my current boyfriend that I was like, I'm never gonna fake it. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
try and train myself and my partner and seeing their reaction to see if they're gonna be comfortable if I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Because I think it's also something they struggle with where they feel like it's their mission and if they don't, then
Mm,
they'll beat themselves up and
yeah.
it's really just like being open with the fact that it takes longer
Mm,
on like a general basis for women and like you said it's still great even if it doesn't happen as long as you
yeah.
feel safe you're in the moment you're like really being present
Mm,
that can be like the best thing you can do for yourself and like taking the pressure off
yeah,
totally
yeah.
both people involved
Mm-hmm.
um so I love that for you and also like relatable.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And I
So
love
relatable.
that commitment to not like having to fake it anymore. And again, taking that performativeness away from sex and really just seeing it as two people playing, right? And just
Yeah.
like having fun. And the best thing about that is like you feel so free to explore both
Yes.
yourself and them without shame. And to me, that's way better than being like, okay, like let's just do penis, vagina, in, out, and then we're done. Like I
Yeah.
think there's just so much more pleasure and joy and intimacy you can build with somebody. And it also reminds me of how exploring consent, but like enthusiastic consent. Like, is it like, do you want to have sex? Yeah, okay. Or is it like, hey, like I'm really into this right now. Let's totally do it if you're down, you know?
Yeah.
So just like reading the room with your partner and being really clear and not taking it personally. Because like you said, you brought up a really good point of like, for some men, if they feel like they can't get the woman to orgasm, then they feel like they failed. Or like
Yeah.
there's almost this like awkwardness between two people, when in reality, it's like you could still enjoy and have a great time without needing that.
Exactly. And my gran recently, like
Mhm.
literally a week ago, it's so funny. I've never heard her ever say this, but
Yeah.
she's like, your generation is like missing out. Because when we were young, they're just forgetting of all the other like playful things that are not penetrative sex. Like
Yeah.
they're it's all it's like this whole spectrum of like love and being intimate
Yeah.
that sometimes we overlook and we don't spend that time appreciating it. And it's really, it should be held at least, or brought, the orgasm should be brought down
Yeah.
to that equal playing field, right? Seriously.
I so agree.
But honestly, I'm love this. I haven't spoken this deep about like sex and like about with any woman because like I mentioned, the shame that
Yeah.
comes around it and like it's really sad that like women don't feel comfortable talking
Mm.
about this.
Mm-hmm.
And it could possibly be rooted in the fact that we don't prioritize that for ourselves, like the
Yeah.
pleasure of
Yeah.
ourselves. It's just a like a job for making sure if you're in a heterosexual relationship that it's for the man.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for
Mm-hmm.
us. And talking about it is taboo because it's not even for us.
Yeah.
But it really should be. So I just want to like say thanks for sharing it. Like I really appreciate you sharing it because I know so many women will enjoy this and also might notice some of the things they feel like they might need to release from
Yeah.
this conversation.
I appreciate that. I think for me, being able to have these types of conversations and also encouraging other women to have these is such a radical act of self care. Like it is
Hmm.
liberating, and not just for you, but for the generations of women before you. Because if you think about it, like women were seen in the past as witches, and going into that more, like we were ashamed, right?
Yeah.
If we slept with even more people, like there's that whole slut culture too, right? And it's like you're allowed to sleep with whoever the fuck you want to sleep with, you know what I mean? And the fact that you have to be
Yeah.
judged by that's insane. But it's because historically you always were. You were called a whore. Like you were really put down by society. So that's why we were literally silenced to protect ourselves. Like it was out of survival and safety. So it makes so much sense that like right now, us women still tiptoe around the subject and we still choose to center men when it comes to sex because it makes us safe, right? Like that's what society tells us. It makes us safe. It puts us back in line. And that's why
Mm,
I think it feels so freeing when you like talk to women who are so sexually free and they own their
yes.
fucking desires and they're not ashamed of it. Like of course they go through their own insecurities as well. Not to, dismiss that either. However, like that sexual confidence you feel like in the room with them is because they've let go of those generational trauma that like we hold in our hips, we hold in our bodies, in our hearts, and our energies. So I just want to say thank you for like creating this platform to encourage women to break free from that trauma that we've held on for centuries. Because I
Hmm.
think that is one step further to liberating women and like decentering a lot of those patriarchal beliefs that we really brought on since we started exploring our own bodies, our own sensuality, our own sexuality.
Yeah. Well, I'm I honestly, I'm glad we really focused on this topic for
Mm,
today because I needed it
mm,
more than anything. And I do appreciate the words you said because I know that some people will be confused by it. I actually,
mm.
um, last week I put out a newsletter. I'm posting these later, so this is not going to be up to date for anyone listening, but time it's like it's May 28th right now.
Yep.
So last week I put a newsletter out and I expressed a difference, and it was like one of the many different ways that I have started to release sexual shame and like
Yeah.
feel more empowered. And it was understanding how forgiveness is for me,
Mm,
condoning is for them,
mm,
because I had a situation like a few years ago, and I've always been sexualized a little bit more because of I have bigger boobs,
mm.
and that just did it, Everybody kind of it just it was like an experience I had, and even I'd wear a t-shirt like this in high school, and a teacher would be like, "You can't wear that." It's like,
That's so crazy.
what? And I started talking back, and really saying like that's not all right, and teachers would have to apologize because I realized that's their own belief systems.
Mm,
But a couple years ago I had an experience of like sexual harassment,
mm,
and it really messed with my head because
mm,
I put everything on me being like, I shouldn't have been in a bathing suit, like I should have been
mm,
more covered up, like I tempted that person, and it's not true. We put everything
mm,
onto ourselves, and I realized that it, if I can't, 2 years later, if I can't forgive that person, because that means letting go of the resentment of me, forgive them so that I can let go. I'm not condoning. Like that behavior needs to end,
mm,
but I'm not going to allow myself to hold on to that fear and
mm,
resentment and anger towards myself for things that actually are not fucking true. Like, it's
mm,
not my fault that I was born this way. And I
mm,
know you've also mentioned online about like Asian fetishes. Like, it's not your
mm.
fault that you were born like that. And
Yeah.
that is something we need to hide away from.
Yep.
And because of that, I allowed my body to feel safer to wear a bikini around people. Because for a
Mhm.
while I was not. I'm like, oh my gosh, what about if I'm tempting them? This has already
Mm,
happened. And that is the reason why I'm bringing this up, because it's reminding me of when you brought up your very first experience having penetrative sex.
yeah.
And because it was something that was less than ideal, that's being generous, and
Mhm.
carried along for so long, and your
Yep.
body was the one that was like, this ain't it.
Yep. Yep.
So it's really such a wide spectrum of how sexual shame plays into our lives there.
Yeah.
And I just really want like more, most like I would like to be more into the energy that you are and the friends that you're
Mhm.
talking about, but every woman, because it's it's not our fault for
Mhm.
being a woman
Yeah.
that should cause X, Y, and Z issues
Yep.
and hold that shame. Like, we don't deserve to hold on to that.
I agree. It is literally our birthright to feel free. And unfortunately, we have to fight for it in today's society. However, one of the ways we do fight for it is like talking about it here, right? And sharing our stories. Like you said, shame dies in silent places. I think that's me paraphrasing that, but that's what I gathered from that
Yeah.
quote. So the fact that we're willing to share our stories, and thank you for being vulnerable and honest with yours, and I'm sure it's helped so many other women listening in feel seen and who have taken that burden on them and their responsibility, right, for that situation, when in reality it's like it's just us existing, and then
It's
detaching.
literally just us existing.
Yep.
Like, re-emphasize that point. I was literally just existing. That's
Yeah.
not our fault. We're
Mm,
doing the same, having sex. Everybody has sex.
yep.
Your grandmother did, otherwise you wouldn't be here,
Yep.
right? So let's not feel like it's something we have to hide away from.
Yeah. Exactly. So like I'm just so grateful we talked about this. It was such a nice and refreshing conversation too. It's been a while since I've like really went deep into it, so I'm so glad it was done with you, Bianca. I really
Oh,
appreciate you.
yes. And for anyone listening, Asia also is amazing with finances and budgeting and investments. And that maybe I'll just bring you on for a whole other episode on that. Seriously, like I did start this podcast expressing the fact that you are so multi-potentialite, and I really love that about you
Thank
because it
you.
gives me permission to also be the same because I have so
Hmm.
many different
Girl, you have
passions.
so many facets. I'm like, I'm
So
so
many.
excited for
And like I said, a total other episode of why that might not be accepted. But
you.
for anyone that is also a woman who might be afraid of tapping into finances or think that's for them or they're afraid, right? Um, Asia's your girl for that. Like
Yes.
on Instagram, I've sent you and your newsletter, I've sent it to so many of my friends.
Thank
You're
you.
really, if anyone's starting embodying the theme that I have for this podcast episode, it's you because you break barriers in so many different ways and like so boldly. And that energy is very well received. Like I see it, so many people see it. So, do
Thank
you
you.
want to share anything else that people can reference
Ooh,
to on,
yeah.
yeah, like,
I mean, like Bianca said, the newsletter I think is my greatest pride and joy. We took a pause on it, but she's coming back
yeah,
hot and better than ever in the beginning of June. So depending, I guess, when your listener gets when this gets
it's
released,
going to be out.
I think it'll be out by then. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So it's gonna go into a whole like how to get into investing series, and not just like
Mm.
buy VFV, like S&P 500, like. Girl, I'm gonna show you what a balance sheet looks like. What are we
Yes.
looking for in the balance sheet? Income statements. What are we looking for? Like, how do we mitigate risk? Like, what are the specifics? Because I felt like when I first got into it, it was still really, really surface level. Yet a lot of the basics, like, are perfect for beginners. We just don't talk about it enough. So, gonna be sharing a lot of those resources there. And back to your point, like, one of the biggest places of shame and reasons why relationships or sorry couples divorce is because of money and sex. So I think it's really
Wow.
important, right, that we
That's
talk about
wild.
these
I didn't
things.
know that.
Yeah, which is crazy because that's also the two things where we hold the most shame, right?
Mm.
Yet we both, like most of us anyway, interact with both things like on a regular basis.
It's taboo.
Yeah.
If you feel like it's taboo to you, then that's shame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, literally, it's like we use money every single day.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we experience pleasure in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be sexually, like it can
Yep.
be intimately, it can be with the simple joys of life.
Yep.
So, why is it like certain points of that pleasure spectrum, like you feel ashamed? Is it like physical related? Is it culturally related? Is it skin related? Like, oh, so many things to go into.
So many things. Yes. And I think you give very, very good tips that are, like you said, not just superficial. Because I've read books, like I've read,
Mm.
one of the only books that would actually recommend is Girls That Invest. I love
Yeah,
that
I
book.
love Simran. She's awesome.
I,
That's the author. Yeah. It's making what was a men's world topic accessible to everyone. So to me, like knowledge isn't how much you know, it's like how well can you explain that concept to someone that is like never heard before. Like they're a second
yes.
grader. And if you can get the message across, to me, like that's a measure of knowledge.
Yes. And money and sex are both things that have
Mhm.
been predominantly like expressed and
Yeah.
centered around men.
Yeah.
So for women to even step a little bit more into feeling more confident with their lives and their power, I think those are two things that I've been working on the last couple of years, and it's done
Mhm.
wonders for me
Yep.
because it's breaking the norms of what women should do and men should do. So, and that's, yeah, like the theme.
Mm.
But as a final question that doesn't even need to relate to fitness, finance, or, you know, female pleasure,
Yeah.
since the theme is she breaks barriers, if is there a rule or even like a tiny should that you have recently broken in your life that is like unapologetically, like no regrets for doing it and you feel better?
Oh. Okay, maybe not be something I've done, but it is a mentality I embody. So like if you
That's
hung out
fun
with
too,
me,
mentalities.
yeah, mentality, okay, because that was the thing that really changed it for me. I think there's a few. I'll like spit fire around them and then I'll finish
Okay.
off with the one that I'll expand on briefly because I know this is supposed to be a fire round question, I guess.
Yep.
A
It's
closing fire round.
all you want. It's
My
doesn't
favorite
even
quotes.
relate to the topic.
Yeah,
Like I'm
as long as
just
they'll do it. It's all
curious.
good.
Yeah.
My favorite quote, like the first one that I ever really like sunk my teeth into and digested is trauma is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I think that can play across this entire conversation of
Yeah.
like, you're just being, something happens to you. It wasn't your fault, but no one's going to heal except you. Like, no one's going to live with that except you. So you really got to take that initiative and responsibility for it. And then the second thing would be protect your peace. Back to what we said of like, you're going to interact with people that have different values. I think it's so important to have strong opinions, but they be loosely held. And what I mean by that is having space to listen to others and understand why they feel that way. Like, it doesn't mean you have to budge on your opinion, but the fact that you're open to understanding other people in case they can add something insightful that you never thought of. And then my final thing, it's way more chill, actually. I feel like the other ones were very heavy. Become the coolest person you know. I think that is like
Mm,
my favorite piece of advice I ever got. And when people first hear that, some people think, wait, like cool as in better than everyone else. And I'm like, no, 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 that's a projection. That is a projection.
yes, yes,
Cool
yes.
as in like look at everything you do, who you are as the person. Ask yourself, like, holy shit, like look at all these amazing things that you're capable of doing, all the impact you've done on the world, the community you've built for yourself. Like, you're fucking dope. Like, you literally are the shit. Like, talking to yourself like
Yeah.
that to me is the first step in learning how to trust yourself and trust your
Mm,
energy and know that it will carry no matter where you go or where you are, who you're with. And the biggest things is that positive reinforcement of talking to yourself. So I love the phrase, like, become the coolest person that you know.
mm. I love that. Those are amazing.
Thanks, girl.
I loved this conversation. I appreciate you so much for sharing all that and just being here. I really appreciate it.
You too, Bianca. This was amazing. I'm so happy we had this conversation.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope that you gained some insight and you found it enlightening and you feel seen. I'd love to know what your comments are. Please comment. You can comment on Spotify or YouTube and just chat about what this episode brought up for you. Did you feel confident? Did you feel seen? Did you feel a little bit uncomfy at times? And I genuinely feel like the more that we talk about this female pleasure and sexual shame, the more that the shame can be gone from our bodies, from our thoughts. We need to be open about it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week. Bye.